Yes.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, like on the first day, is you said, like to my friend over here, you got to lead your people. You got to learn enough about the job that you hate and then lead them. And what I wanted to ask you is, well, being sort of on the front lines of things, how do you actually, or what are your ideas on leadership? And you gave some examples today. Like, for example, you sort of come up with a plan, and then you ask the questions. So that's one strategy.
That's only one part, yes.
I was wondering if you could share maybe 2 or 3 more.
Sure, I'll be happy to. My number one belief about leadership is you're a servant. Here's what I mean specifically. The word hero, that is in the archetype of like men and you and I bet. Is it true that inside of you, you really want to be the best? You want to create the best, share the best, do the best? Is that a metaphor for you in your life?
Absolutely.
Yeah, me too. So I think people in this room tend to have that as their metaphor. So all of us at some level, man or woman, wants to be a hero. The word hero in its Latin root means servo. Servo means servant. It actually means slave. The hero, why they're the hero, is become the ultimate servant to something larger than themselves, people and so forth. The person who thinks they're going to lead by demand or by position can only lead for a short period of time. But the person whose idea of serving is, my belief is, if you can find a way to take any group of people and help them to experience their needs at a richer, deeper level than anyone else, then together you guys can get anything done. Anything. Now, it may not work the first time, but together you can get to that point. Because needs are ultimately what we're after. We're not after the vehicle we think we're after. You want $1 billion, then you get it. I got plenty of clients, and I will tell you, it is not the end game. And so then they go after their second billion. Or you think it's getting married, and then you get it, and you find out it's not the end game. There's certain needs that have to be there, and the ultimate needs are growing and giving. Because you only can feel so good filled up by yourself. So my core belief is, I got to serve. If I serve, I can lead. Because I believe motive does matter. If my motive is just to get you to do something for me, there's a certain amount of power that I can get to do that if I strategize, if I think, if I feel, and also if it serves a greater good, even if I don't intend it. If the bumblebee goes to try to get the nectar it wants, its selfish goal, I believe there's a higher power that guides it all. And when that bumblebee goes, it doesn't intend to give anything but pollen sticks to its legs. As it goes about trying to get what it wants, that's how flowers are created. I really believe that everything has a web of connection. If your intent is to serve yourself, you're still going to serve something more than yourself, and you're going to get a certain amount of insight. If your intent and your motive is to serve something, yourself, but also something more, just your kids, then I believe you get a different level of insight. And because you're serving more of what serves life. It's not just me. It's me and my family. If you're trying to serve a community, I believe you get a different level of insight. If you're trying to serve humanity, you get a different level of insight. I get emotional thinking about it because this is why I do what I do. So when someone stands up, it's not about business, it's not about anything, but about serving them. So I will use abrasive or creative language. I'll use whatever it takes, humor, stupidity. I'll make fun of myself. I'll challenge. I'll do anything to serve. That's why I'm here. I don't need to do that anymore, but I love to see someone free and alive and lit up. So when that's your motive, no matter how people perceive you on the outside, if they're around you long enough, you can't hide what your real motive is. And they'll see it and they'll feel it. Motive does matter. If it's to serve something high, it'll be there. That doesn't mean you don't get served too. And in business, you got to be served. Or I used to do business and I lose money in the business and everybody else was happy. And it was wonderful, except I had no business. So it's, killing the goose that lays the golden eggs. So I've learned to put that balance in. But that gives me power. That's why time disappears for me. Because I'm not about getting some action done. I'm about the outcome. Question.
We talked about, the economy being real rough going forward. But you've given so much of yourself, and I can see it, and the passion behind these people about teaching these really important business principles, that I'm confident that it's going to be a lot shorter to come out of this recession.
Thank you so much. My honor. Thank you. Give him a hand. So let me just tell you, I'm excited to be with you this morning and to be here. I flew in specifically for this. I'm going to do a date with Destiny for 6 days down the Gold Coast. But I came up here because I wanted to have an experience, because this is a perfect time to talk with people. Because right now, most of the world, when they look at the economy and their world, do they have a great deal of excitement or foreboding? What would you say? Most of the world. No questions, foreboding. If you had to give this a season we're in right now, an economic season for most of the world, would you say it's spring, where things are just starting to grow? Summer, where you're not quite where you want to be and you're a little annoyed because it's a hot summer, you want more? Fall, where everybody's reaping like crazy? Or winter, where you're working your ass off and it doesn't seem to be paying off fully? Which season would you say the majority of the world thinks they're in? Quick. Which one? Winter. And winter. I love the way you guys say winter. Winter. Winter is the most powerful season you could possibly start a business or make any money in. And I'm not saying that because I'm positive, because if you know anything about me personally, that's not where I come from. I'm not the positive thinker that you may have seen. People say imagery of me in a seminar because I believe in the power of energy. Because without energy, nothing gets done. Lots of people know what to do, but they don't do what they know. Lots of reasons. Fear is one of them. Not know what to do is another one. But the biggest one is energy. So they see people with energy in my rooms because I believe you want to make this thing more like a rock concert, because people get bored when they're just sitting on their tail learning. So what I really believe is we need energy, but I'm here to tell you, I'm not here to come by today and say to you, it's all positive. Let's go to our garden and let's chant, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I'm here to say there's lots of weeds. Here's what they are. Let's pull those suckers out so we have the garden we want. Who's with me on this? Say aye. I'm not a believer in positive thinking. I'm a believer in intelligence. And intelligence says that if you and I are going to succeed in this environment, if you've come to a seminar like this, and you're looking for ways to maximize your growth in your business, in your life, in your finances, then you've got to understand what's really going on and not kid yourself. And so if you look around, I think there's 3 keys to being a leader. There are mandates to leadership. Very simple, but you might jot them down and think about these as you listen to all the speakers this weekend or the next day or so, because it's really going to determine what happens. Because many of you come to an event like this and you're going to get excited. You're going to learn some strategies. You're going to learn some tools, some insights. And how many of you came here because you want to make some more money? I'm just curious. How many came for that as a primary reason? Say aye. How many came because you already have a business you want to take to another level? I'm curious. Say aye. How many of you don't have a vehicle? You came here looking for a way to make some money. Let me see your hand. Say aye. Most of you already have a vehicle. Good. How many of you came because you just want to improve the aspects of your life, something you want to enjoy more, experience more? Say aye. Well, we're going to cover all those. This morning, we're going to start with you. We're going to start with you because if you own a business, if you're going to be an investor, what's going to determine your success or failure is not going to be other people. It's going to be you as the leader. Ultimately, the chokehold on any business, 80% of it is the psychology of the leader. The owner or leader determines it. Financial wealth does not come from mechanics. I coach one of the top financial traders on the face of the earth. He's been my client for literally 2 decades, 20 years. He pays me $1 million a year to coach him. He emails me every day his measurements. I see him only 3-4 times a year for an hour. I get $1 million plus a piece of the upside. I don't tell you that to impress you. I tell you because it impresses me. Not bad for 4 hours work, but I've helped him for 20 years where he literally made more money than any human being in history in 1987 in a single day. Literally made more money than anybody made in a day, which in those days was $500 million in a day. Today, that's like $500 billion with inflation. But it was more money in 1987 when the American stock market had its biggest drop in a single day percentage-wise, still strongest, worst day percentage-wise. He called the market accurately, hour by hour, a week in advance, and made $500 million in a day. Now, you can't live on that, but it's a good start, get you going. Here's the problem. He lost money for the next 2 years. He brought me in, and for 20 years, he's made money every single year for 20 years. 2008, when most hedge funds were losing 30, 40, 50, some of them 80%, he made 28% upside that year. Unbelievable. So I know a little bit about markets. I'm not just Mr. Positive Thinking. I've been studying everything about him. George Soros, who made $1 billion in a day, who outdid my friend later on in the UK on their Black Day, he turned that around as well. So I'm here to tell you, I know there are elements you can take advantage of. And the people that know winter is the best season are the people that take advantage, not because they're positive, because they're smart. But in order for you to do that, you need 3 things. First, you got to see things as they are, but not worse than it is. Are you with me on this? Because when you talk to the most Aussies today, let me just explain something to you. Most Aussies today have a little bit of nervousness about the economy. Raise your hand if you can relate to that, to your friends, have a little bit of nervousness, not quite thrilled with the economy. Raise your hand if that relates. Let me just get a sense. How many know Aussies think it's the best economy it could ever be? Okay, 3 people on drugs. Good, very good. Here's the truth. There's a little nervousness because of Europe, obviously, Nervousness because China's still growing, but maybe not as fast. Big piece here. Nervousness because, oh my God, we got a few little taxes coming in here now, right? Carbon tax. But interest rates are down 2% in just, the last 6, 8, 10, 12 months. Pretty nice. But there's this nervousness. Here's what you got to know. If you're freaking nervous here, you better not leave Australia. Because there are 7 billion people on the planet, and they all freaking wish they lived in Australia. You're in the best position of any country in the world. That's not to say there aren't challenges. Your real estate market here is definitely inflated to a mass level, and you haven't had a big correction. There are things that are going to occur here. But you got to see it as it is, but not worse than it is, or you're not going to act out of fear. How many follow what I'm talking about here? Say I. And why do most people make it worse than it is? You tell me. Why do most people make it worse than it? Say, oh, you can't even believe. Why even try? The whole economy is just going to tank anyway. Why do people come up with this stuff? Because they're so afraid to what? What's the word no one likes to say? Let's hear it. They're so afraid to fail. So they look for a story to cover them. It's like somebody says to me, I can't lose weight because I'm big boned. No, you're freaking fat. Let's just tell the truth here. Right? Is it true? You're fat. I mean, I'm not making a judgment. You're fat. I was big boned. That was my story. I was 38 pounds heavier than I am now, and my story was I'm big boned. I'm still big boned, and I'm 38 pounds lighter. We come up with a story because we're afraid to fail. What you have to do is see it as it is, not fake yourself and say everything's positive, everything's wonderful. You'll get killed doing that in business. You got to be smart. You got to see it as it is, but not worse than it is so you don't take advantage. Does this make sense? Yes or no? Second key is really simple. You got to see it better than it is or you won't do anything. That's the second key. You got to see it better than it is. That's what a leader brings to the table. So bottom line is, you got to see it better than it is. If you saw a guy like Ted Turner, multi-billionaire, amazing influence, created CNN. Think about this. When he first came up with the idea of 24-hour news, what do you think most people thought of that idea? First of all, they said there isn't that much news. He almost went bankrupt 4 times, but he kept seeing it better than it was. He saw the truth. He saw the challenges. He didn't make it worse than it is so he didn't panic. He saw it better so there was something to move towards that he could make happen. What does it say? Without a vision, people what? Perish. If you don't have a compelling view of the future, you're in trouble. And here's the challenge. Most of the world right now is in this place. In America, it's the highest it's ever been. 63% of Americans now believe the best days are behind them. They believe specifically that the future for themselves and their kids will be far less than it is today. That's 72%, by the way, of Germans. 81% of French people believe that. Now, Aussies are in a great place, so one thing you got to do is celebrate where the hell you live. Give a little hand for living in Australia, ladies and gentlemen. Come on now. So, if you're going to be smart, you got to go, we got a young group of economy. We've got a young generation coming up. We certainly have some ties to some amazing resources that are natural resources for us. And yes, the spending is not as high, and yes, there's going to be a correction. But guess what? Some people's winter is devastating. Other people's winter is mild. So far, yours is mild. I'm not saying it won't get worse. But here's what I can tell you. If you see it as is and you see it better than it is, you'll know something. The greatest investors, the greatest financial success in history, the first man to become a billionaire by investing alone is a man who was a friend of mine. He died about 4 years ago named Sir John Templeton. Sir John Templeton started out with nothing. He wasn't Sir John. He was a guy that basically grew up in this tiny little town with nothing to his name. He worked hard, and he decided to save his money and find a way to invest. But he had one cool secret. He realized when things are going well, what do people want for their property when things are going really well? A high price or a low price? Which one? High price. When things are going well, do they want a high price or a low price for their shares? Which one? High price. When things are going unhappy, when things are terrible, when things are going well, people think it's going to go well forever. When they think it's going bad, they think it's going to go bad for how long? Forever. When things are going really poor, what does that guy want for his shares or his home? A high price or whatever he can get? Which one? Whatever he can get. So his mindset was really simple. I'm going to make all my money, write this down, during times of maximum pessimism. I'll make all my money during times of maximum pessimism. If you can, when everybody else is freaking out, seeing it worse than it is, you can see how it really is, not kid yourself, not just be positive, but see it better than it is and see where the advantage is. And you can do the third step I left out, which is once you see it better than it is, you got to make it that way. You got to come up with a strategy and action plan to make it that way. If you can do those 3 things, you can take advantage. And he did it. I'll tell you how he did it. When Hitler invaded Europe, When he actually invaded Poland, this guy took $10,000, $5,000 he saved and $5,000 he borrowed, which back in those days was a huge sum of money, and he went out and bought every stock he could get his hands on that was under $2 on the New York Stock Exchange, including companies that many people thought would go bankrupt. He just bought them across the board. $10,000. Now, by the way, that was one of the worst winter moments of maximum pessimism because everybody went, oh my God, Hitler's now storming Europe. We tried to appease him. It's not working. He's going to take, and countries are dropping. Everybody thinks the bad things are going to go on forever. Here's what we all know about seasons. Winter does not last forever, does it? What always follows winter, my friends? What? Springtime. A new opportunity is always there. But when you're in winter, you think it's forever. And so everybody's freaking out, so share prices went through the floor. So what he got for $10,000 was worth its weight in gold. And by the way, 5 years later when the war was over, what happened to the shares of stocks? What happened as the company started to rebuild? Exploded back up. That $10,000 investment made him a billionaire over the course of 2 decades. He didn't stop there. Where would be the worst place to think of investing after World War II, would you think? Where was the country most destroyed? Even more than Germany. Which country? Japan. It had radioactive places. Guess how much they want for land that's radioactive? Literally, he bought things for pennies on the dollar. And if you remember, in the late 80s, who was the country that was dominating the economies around the world? It was Japan. And guess what he did? Sold it all right there at the peak when everybody there thought it was going so great. He always made money in terms of times of maximum pessimism. So what I'm here to say to you today is this. This morning, I want to work with you as a leader. I want to give you some strategies and tools that you can use to immediately shift your psychology, because that's going to be 80% of your wealth building. 20% is going to be mechanics of how to do it. They maximize resources. A leader can come into an organization that's totally torn up in horrible shape, take the same resources, take it to another level. Your body, your mind, your emotion, but you can't maximize it when you're trying to fit in. And you can't maximize it when you live by everybody else's rules. I'm not saying don't be respectful. I'm just saying as a leader, you've got to decide what you believe is right. And one thing I can tell you will always feel right, to never settle for less than you can be, do, share, or give. That'll feel right as long as you're inside your life here. Whoa, yes. So question, how do you build muscle? Because what we want to leave here with is not some just positive attitude BS. We don't want to just leave here with some material we wrote in our books. We want to leave here with a different sense of identity, strength, and muscle. I don't just mean just physical muscle, I mean emotional muscle. Because think about, how do you build a muscle? What do you do? No. Exercising a muscle is how you keep it. If you don't use it, you lose it. Faith unused, faith unemployed does not grow. It diminishes, true? Courage that's inside of you, that after a while you don't use your courage, you don't make yourself do it. The courage muscle doesn't get bigger, it gets smaller. Passion between a couple, where you're so busy and you're so tired, unexpressed, after a while that passion dwindles, sometimes moves to seemingly nothing for people that really do love each other. But what's happened is they just haven't used the muscle. It's so weak, it's like, where would we even start? Right? That process happens in all human beings, and the emotional muscles are the one that shape every leader in every part of this world. Because everything that's happening in this world is an emotional game. 911 was an emotional game. 12 guys took down a $5 trillion economy for a few days, shut down the air transport system, and put the word terrorism, fear, and uncertainty into 255 million Americans. I don't support it, but one thing drove it: emotion. It wasn't intellect. They used their intellect to its maximum capacity for bad, for destruction, from our perception. Certainly mine, you'd probably agree with me. But on the other hand, there are a group of people that are on a plane who use that same emotion to get themselves from a place of total fear to saying the phrase, let's roll. And those people, Todd Beam and those people there, those people use that emotion to give their lives also, but to protect life. Protect what probably would hit the White House. To change that piece. Those people put their lives on the line because they activated the emotion. They didn't sit there emotionally unfit, hanging out in their chairs hoping. or worrying or fearing just for themselves. They figured out there's something we got to do and we're going to do it now. Muscle, emotional muscle, that's what will change your life. 80% of success in life, 80% of achievement in business, 80% of almost anything that matters in your life is psychology, and 20% is mechanics. How to get fit physically is not that complex. There are a million classes, courses, programs, elements, internet elements. There's a gym on every corner. There's a trainer anywhere nearby. How to do it, the mechanics is not that complex. So how come the vast majority of people on this planet, I should say, vast majority of Americans, not the planet, because most people don't have enough money to be like people here, we're the most obese nation in the history of the world. We're physically fat because we're emotionally fat. Because what it takes is will. People tell me all the time, diet and exercise, you have a great life. That's a two-legged stool. It won't stand. You need the third element. The third leg is emotional fitness, psychological strength, the capacity to drive yourself to do what doesn't feel good initially but feels incredible long term. That's what we're going to do here. The bottom line is, if leaders get results, and most people don't get results, most people tell us a story, don't they? If you don't get the result, if people don't achieve their goal, they don't get the result, why don't they achieve it? What do most people tell us? What have we even said at times, if we're honest? You didn't achieve the goal, you didn't achieve your dream, you didn't achieve this thing. We as a company didn't do it because what? What's the reason people give? Tell me. We don't have okay, we didn't have the money. What else? Tell me. Oh, we didn't have the time. I didn't have enough time to achieve it. We don't have the resource. We don't have the people resource. Okay, we don't have the people. We don't have the computers. We don't have the technology. We don't have the tools. We don't have the right plan. We don't have a plan. My boss sucks. If it wasn't for my boss, we would have made it happen. Wrong leadership. Wrong management. What else? Oh, because our people are too old. We don't have enough youth. So if you put them up on the screen here, people say things like, I don't have time, we don't have the money, we don't have the technology, the energy, not enough resource, we don't have the quality of leadership, we don't know the right people, we don't have the network, I don't have the education. That's why. Whenever people fail to achieve their goals 99.9% of the time, and you ask them why, they'll tell you it's because of a lack of resources. That's what all these things are. I didn't have the support, right? I didn't have the money, we didn't have the time, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. There's a resource that people believe is missing. And that resource, belief structure, then keeps people from ever being able to really lead. Because what leaders do is they find a way to maximize whatever resources they have, as little as they may be, and they don't believe in limited resources. I'll give you an example. Let's take a business example to start with. In 1974, a guy named Sam Walton had built his little company up. He came up with an idea. He started with $20,000 in, I think, 1962, if I remember right. But by 1974, within 12 years, he had 78 stores. And you know how he did it? In the middle of the night, he'd drive across the border, and he'd go and study other people's stores. He'd buy everything the cheapest he could in the middle of the night. He'd go to other people's stores. Whatever was working, he figured out. Success leaves clues. He came back and did it in his store. Whatever was working in any store, in any competitor, anywhere he could do it, he did it. So he figured out how to maximize the little resources he had, his 20,000, built 78 stores, and if you read any of the people following him, the company had gone public in that year, they were all saying, this is it. He's maximized his resources. I mean, he only has so much money, there's only so many cities that are going to appeal to this discounting mentality, right? This is it, this is all he can do. And the word on Wall Street was, sell. Now what's interesting is, at that time, you look at Sears and Kmart, and they were gargantuan companies, weren't they? 20, 30, 40, 50 times, 100 times his size or more, probably. And at that time, they were the leaders, and they knew what's going to happen. But did things change, yes or no? Did he suddenly get mass amounts of capital? No. Here's what they didn't understand. Sam Walton now, or the Walton organization, Walmart, is the most successful retailing operation on earth. And when you talk about Bill Gates being the richest man in the world, that's only true because Sam's fortune is divided up amongst a bunch of different family members. You put them together, they dwarf Bill Gates. Sam Walton did this. How did he do it? What people underestimated is that this guy could go to 4,400 stores, do $250 billion. Where's Kmart today? And they've been shrinking. All of them have been shrinking. And he's the dominant force on earth. Here's the thing he understood. Resources are interesting, but the ultimate resources are the feelings of emotion that make you resourceful. Think of it this way. Resourcefulness is the ultimate resource. What do I mean? What are the emotions that make all this possible? What's the fuel that takes an idea from being in your head where you intellectually know what to do? How many have had an idea, for example, was a great idea, you're excited about it, and then you didn't do anything. One day, there you saw it on the shelf, you saw it somewhere, someone stole your idea. How many have had this happen? Say, I. The only difference between you and that person